Welcome to today's webinar entitled 4 Key Elements of a Successful Campus Waste Solution. My name is Billy Zadig, Manager, Special Programs for APA. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. The webinar recording will be posted to the APA website later this afternoon. Please visit our website at apa.org to register for upcoming events and to view archived webinars for continuing education credits found under the Continuous Learning tab. Professional Continuing Education and AIA CLU certificates are being offered for today's program. If you're an AIA professional, please send an email to me at Billy, B-I-L-L-I-E, at apa.org, along with your AIA membership number if you've not done so in the past. Those who indicated they wanted a certificate at registration and meet the requirements will receive certificates later this afternoon. All attendees are in listen-only mode. Please type your questions in the chat box and they will be answered in the order they are received. If we run out of time and we still have questions, responses will be sent directly to the person asking the question by one of our presenters. If you're just calling in, make sure you send me an email at billy@apa.org so I can send you a certificate if you would like one. The system only recognizes you if you log in. At this time, it's my pleasure to turn this over to Brian Phillips, who will kick us off. Brian, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Billy. And thanks to APA and thanks to everybody out there for joining us. Both, I can see from the list, a lot of new people, but also a lot of great customers of ours in the university and higher education space. Thank you so much for taking some time to join us today. Just quickly, a little bit for those that don't know who Bigbelly is. Bigbelly pioneered the smart waste industry really years ago, back in 2003. We're now deployed in over 1,800 implementations or in 60 countries and with over 70,000 units deployed. For us, the university sector is a very important sector to us. It was one of the early adopters of smart waste because universities are smart, so it makes some sense. And but why they use it is really goes beyond being smart waste. You're going to learn a lot about that today. It's not just about universities, but also we work with cities and airports and parks and you name it. But the key point is that universities around the world are really using Bigbelly for 4 key reasons. One of those being productivity, but the beautification aspect, the aesthetics aspects, and sustainability aspects are major drivers for the technology. Today, your host is going to be Jeff Batwich, who's here. He's one of actually the founders of Bigbelly way back when he was just a little guy, and now he's Vice President of Product Strategy and Engineering. And the real work, and he's going to give you a good overview of Bigbelly, the Bigbelly System, so everybody has a good grounding on what it is. And then you'll hear from Carly Provost-Rizor, who's been working with Bigbelly for many years now at the University of Illinois Chicago campus and has a wonderful deployment out there. And she's going to really speak to how that deployment has impacted the University of Illinois Chicago's university and also her operations. So with that, let me turn it over to Jeff Batwich. Jeff?
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Billy, for putting on this wonderful webinar here. First, I'd tell you guys a little bit about Bigbelly and the platform and the system and how it can be deployed across your campus and what sort of benefits come from that. Brian mentioned as he started speaking here that there are 4 main benefits that our customers receive that causes them to deploy and expand and continue with Bigbelly year on and year in and year out. Starts with hiding and containing public space waste. Brian mentioned the appealing design, just the overall aesthetics of the bins relative to other bins around campuses, easing the waste collection operations, and helping achieve sustainability goals. And we'll dive into each one of these a little bit more. As far as hiding and containing waste goes, Bigbelly was pioneered as a solar-powered trash compactor company. When I was founding the company back in 2003, our goal was to make a higher capacity waste bin. One of the outcomes of that was creating a safe and enclosed waste bin to keep the compaction mechanism inside hidden from the public and preventing them from getting hurt or from the mechanism inside. The side benefit of that was it did a really good job of hiding and containing public space waste. That total enclosure that we see prevents visible waste. So as you're walking past the bin, it looks like a nice clean thing rather than a dirty bin. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen people standing around a bin like I am here, perhaps having a coffee or lunch on top of a waste bin. Never have I ever seen that in any other type of waste bin around the world. So the hiding of the visible waste, making it appear like a clean thing, is one of the key benefits of hiding and containing public space waste. Also, not having the open interface, windblown litter is a thing of the past. It keeps pests out of the waste. Specifically, we're talking about rats, seagulls, things like that that will go in and pull waste back out. We have high capacity compactors. Again, this was one of the founding precepts of the company. Having that additional capacity there prevents overflows, and overflows are one of the things that would kind of create that visibility. You see some pictures here on the slide of other bins when they reach their capacity, and they reach that capacity before a collection crew can come pick them up. You end up with an overflow situation. We're going to talk a lot later on about some of the smarts that we offer with our system, and knowing where to go and when to go can help you get there before an overflow condition exists, and again, continue on hiding that waste from the users. And our products, as you can see in the slide and the picture here, are all coming with the foot pedal now. So it's a really hygienic way to interact with the hopper. Total hands-free. You can step on it and the hopper opens like I'm showing here without the use of your hands, without touching the handle. And this has become something that's been much more desired from folks, certainly in a post-COVID world as we think about touching surfaces. As far as the overall design goes, the company really strives to make something that works in as many different environments as we can. We have bins all across the world, as Brian was mentioning, over 1,800 different unique customers, and each customer has their own unique aesthetics. We have them in old places, Trinity College, for example, over in Ireland, with old architecture, and so architecture that they're very proud of. They're very modern institutions, over in the Arab world and Dubai and places like that. The bin is designed to kind of blend into those sort of areas. We also offer wraps and graphics where you can customize the look and feel to tune to your specific aesthetics. One of the things that we hear people appreciate a lot is really just having a uniform design across their public space waste. From a campus architecture perspective, figuring out kind of one design that works across a lot of different environments. They come back on. Yep. Easing waste operations. This was really one of the founding precepts of Bigbelly and the company. We saw the waste that existed in the waste industry, and we sought to try to streamline that, make it more efficient. One of the ways that we determined to do that early on was developing solar-powered trash compactors. These are things that hold 80% more waste than a typical bin. Holding that additional waste gives you different flexibility in where to go, when to go, how often you're going to run your waste operations, how few collections can you do, what else would you do with that time. This really has been one of the big impacts that customers see. Over my shoulder here, you'll see the University of Illinois Chicago. This is real data from them as a customer. This green line up here shows that they were picking up the waste about daily back before they deployed Bigbelly. And on average, they're picking up each bin, a couple times a month instead. It's been a dramatic decrease in the amount of time and collections that they're doing as a waste operation. They have lots of other things that they want to do and should do with their time that's maybe more valuable to the campus. So easing up those waste operations by having better capacity, alerts to know where to go and when to go, really helps give them more time back in their day. The capacity and the enclosed waste minimizes the cleanup required with waste bins, and fewer collection activities results in fewer occupational hazards. Last but certainly not least is sustainability goals. We're founded as a company that one of the things we wanted to do was to strive to make the world a better place. And we're doing that from within the waste industry. People often think of the waste industry as kind of part of the problem. But we think the waste industry is really part of the solution. There's a lot of really good stuff going on in the waste industry, a lot of cool technology happening. I think the industry as a whole is being modernized and looking for ways to become a more green industry. One of the great things that our customers have done with Bigbelly is deploy public space recycling. Certainly on college campuses, I can't think of a college that we have that doesn't have a really strong public space recycling program. Some of the best mixes and widest ranges of recycling programs we see in the university sector. So having that recycling program, measuring that recycling program, promoting that recycling program is all kind of part of what comes with the Bigbelly system. For those of you out there that are collecting with refuse vehicles, and so maybe this is some of the bigger campuses or places in urban areas where it's spread throughout streets, the greenhouse gas emission reduction from decreased truck trips, less miles driven, is also one of the main benefits, and again, one of the founding precepts of why we thought it was important to make the waste collection operation more efficient. So that's a little bit about kind of what the Bigbelly system as a whole does. We'll talk a little bit about the components of the system and what things that you may be more familiar with in your interactions if you have been a customer or have talked to someone within our company. Bigbelly system is a combination of the hardware that gets installed out in the campus and then a software management platform that sits over top of that. So we have high capacity and standard capacity models. We have them in connected and non-connected forms, a wide range of recycling and waste interfaces. Again, in the university sector, we see some of the widest range of recycling going on. One of the unique things that this industry has over, say, our public space bins in municipal settings is universities typically have a lot more control over the type of waste stream that is generated. You can control what's purchased in the cafeterias as far as containers go. And the students are generally a little more aware of recycling in the first place. So taking a look at some of the recycling options we have, from single stream recycling, bottles and cans only, paper only, or organics, which has been gaining in popularity recently. Customizable graphics all around. This can be either to promote the university or to help educate on what goes into which bin if you're doing a recycling program, and an array of accessories. On the software side of things, we have a cloud management system and a mobile app that help you run your waste operations either on the go or from a management console. As we look to deploy bins around a campus, we have four kind of main components that you can mix and match to get the right system in place. Many of the folks on the call here may be familiar with the two bins on the left side of the screen here, kind of in the red and the yellow. Those are our high capacity station with smarts, which has really kind of been the bread and butter of our company since the founding. Second, in yellow there is our standard capacity station. So this is a non-compacting station, but still has smarts, will still sense when it's full and report into our software system that it's been full and when it's been collected. New to the Bigbelly portfolio and stuff that we're going to talk about a little bit today are non-connected versions of both of those bins. Non-connected compactor, our HC5 basic as it's listed here in the purple section, and our non-compacted non-compactor, our HC5.5 basic. These are things we're going to show a little bit later how these can be mixed and matched into a deployment to make a smarter overall system with maybe less smarts in it. And this is all around trying to create the right value for the company, for the customer. These bins come at a lower price because they lack the software and the connectivity that comes with them. And so we're able to really put together a really compelling sales model for you and a nice deployment that can match all your needs in all the different places. On the software side of things, we have a whole management console that comes with the program. It's all cloud-based, so there's no IT setup or infrastructure needed. There's a centralized dashboard that you see here over my shoulder that shows some kind of key metrics about the deployment, how it's going, what's been going on, and some historic data there. Most customers have auto-generated collection notifications set up that tells them when to collect. Maybe they'll get a report out at a certain time of day of all the bins that need to be picked up. In this case, See, there's only 15 of the 216 bins in UIC's campus that needs to be picked up. So it's a pretty manageable list that can be printed out, handed out to the collection crew, and they can go out and run their collections. We also have that available in a mobile app, so you can go on to a mobile device, and if you're out on the go, you can, live on that device, see which bins need to be collected. A lot of our customers, certainly in the university sector, are doing other things during the day. They may be doing grounds cleanup or other stuff, and so it's convenient for them to know if I'm in a certain area, which bins need to be collected, and they can get that really with the touch of a couple taps on the phone. For looking back and looking historically and seeing what's been going on, we have a full suite of reports that you can get into to look at collection history, diversion rates, and other things that may be interesting about the operations. And if there are other systems going on campus, we do have export capability and APIs to feed data into other systems that may be useful to look at the campus and the sustainability goals, for example, as a whole. While we do have kind of those four main components, there's all sorts of ways to jazz them up. We have a wide range of accessories that you can get to put on your stations to meet the needs of the different areas, anywhere from smart access controlled lock systems to locking the hopper, whole wide range of graphic capabilities, lifting devices if ergonomics and weight of the bins is an issue, and a bunch of other things. I won't go into detail on all of these things, but feel free to go to bigbelly.com where you can dig into each one of these in more detail and learn more if one is of particular interest to you. As far as thinking about a deployment on campus, it can be confusing to say, well, you got 4 different bin types, you have all these different accessories. How do I know where to put these and what to do with them? Brian's going to talk a little bit later about kind of how our sales organization works with you as a customer. But here's an example of kind of how we approach a deployment, understanding what the customer needs and trying to work with you to customize a waste system to that need. This is an example campus. It happens to be the University of Illinois Chicago, our wonderful co-presenter on this panel. Now, this is not necessarily what is on their deployment. We're trying to talk about, if you map out your bins, what the needs are in the specific area, how do you think about what to deploy where? We have high capacity stations, we have non-high capacity stations, we have smart stations, we have non-smart, non-connected stations. We typically look at the busy areas on campus, the places that have the most waste, are the places where it's most appropriate to have a compact. In a university setting, this is often around kind of dining facilities. So we'll work with you, we'll identify those areas, we'll spec out compactors for those areas. Generally, it's really beneficial to have those be the smart and connected model so that your team knows where to go, when to go, and pick those up as they're out doing their other rounds in that area. As you're looking at the walkways between buildings, for example, that can be generally a lower waste volume setting. Places where you need waste bins for convenience and other factors, but less of the overall volume of waste. So you can generally deploy the standard capacity stations in both smart and basic models, and we can kind of mix those and match those in there to identify places that you want to have the smarts and the connectivity and the fullness reporting and other kind of, let's call it companion areas where there's a bin nearby that the fullness of that bin is generally going to be following the other bin, and you may not need to invest in the cost of the smarts in that sort of case. You kind of get a really smart system with a mix of smart and non-smart stations. As we think about the non-smart or non-connected compactors, probably the best use case in a college campus is more event spaces. So maybe a sports arena area where there's a crush of waste for a very specific period of time. You know when that time is, so you don't need to have fullness notifications on when to go, where to go pick it up, but you really need help in managing that waste deployment for that period of time. So if you're thinking about the sports arena areas, maybe it's a football stadium or basketball stadium area where there's events on certain days, our basic HCs can be a great solution for those areas. So I'm done talking about us. Most important thing is to hear from a customer what her experience has been and how they're actually using a system. So love to turn it over at this point to Carly Provost-Rizor from the University of Illinois Chicago. They have been a wonderful customer of ours for many, many, many years. They continue to do great work with the Bigbelly system. You can see here over my shoulder, a power user of the system with the amount that they have reduced their collections, their overall efficiency level, the amount of diversion they're getting. A great example of a really excellent deployment. So Carly, take it away.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Carly Provost-Rizor. I'm the superintendent of grounds at UIC. Our university is located about a mile west from the heart of downtown Chicago. It's the largest public research university, the largest university in the Chicago area. We have about 34,000 students within our 200-acre or so footprint, and our journey to kind of the Bigbelly institution began prior to my arrival on campus. Next slide. So back in 2014, we had an engineering student and EcoCampus president submit a proposal to our sustainability department for the institution of on-campus recycling, a recycling program in an effort to not only provide this to the campus community in conjunction with reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Our campus is fairly unique in that we are nestled in between two of Chicago's major expressways and a neighborhood. Between the influx of students, faculty, and staff on a daily basis, we have the campus community, we have commuters, we have our own hospital system, so we have a lot of patrons of the campus that aren't necessarily here for the full 8 hours a day. The student was awarded the funding to proceed with a pilot program, and we had 8 duo stations placed within our central quad area on the east side of campus. As you can see, the photo on the right was, and still is in some instances, the traditional waste receptacles that we have on campus. They were about 300 to 400 pounds. Where you saw one, you would have 5. The university is kind of a diamond in the rough in our area. There are a lot of residents that like to utilize the area. They walk, they bring children for play dates. So it's very, very popular because we have a lot of green space, and that's hard to come by. That being said, it is hard to keep up with the garbage. There are street festivals, music festivals, and we had an incredible amount of our staff, probably 10 to 15%, dedicated 7 days a week just to refuse pickup. And the cans themselves were also incredibly difficult to maintain. The exposed aggregate, whether it was gum, graffiti, things like that, it was hard to keep looking nice. And also the open tops of the container, we found, we were having to check habitually because they would either fill with water, one pizza box or one takeout coffee container from, a staff breakfast would fill the spot fairly quickly. And so there was that threshold where at about halfway, we found, better to empty than allow it to overflow. Next slide. So the pilot program when I came on campus was very successful. There was a lot of student engagement, and they were very excited, and we got a lot of feedback of, this is great. The central quad space on campus for us is utilized for everything from student involvement fairs to spoken word events to back to school barbecues, fraternities spaces. And not only did we find immediate waste diversion into these recycling spaces, but the question kept asking, when are there going to be more? It was also a seamless transition for my staff. And I thought, well, if some of the employees, certainly who have been here for 30 years, find this simple to use, why not add more? Because the less time they're spending picking up garbage, we can utilize that space much more efficiently. So I had reached out to Bigbelly, and certainly it's may be different for every university. But we started to do a full campus assessment for our main east side, and went through and tracked every single existing concrete bin, which we had over 400, and also evaluated kind of the flow of campus users entering and exiting spaces. We also have City of Chicago bus stops, our own UIC bus stops, CTA train stations, and so kind of monitoring most common access points and seeing really where we need the refuse. And we were able to immediately eliminate over 400 trash cans with 100 Bigbelly Duo stations. We worked closely with our sustainability department to make this as green of a process as possible. All of those concrete trash cans were recycled and generated over 19 tons of crushed concrete. The metal, what was left of it, was recycled as well between the tops and then the inserts that remained. And that process was very seamless. We did have some hesitation going into it as far as, okay, once we take these cans away and there's a little bit of a lapse in time before the stations go in, you know, even if it is a few hours, we were kind of at the ready and prepared for trash to be in the turf in our landscape beds, and that didn't happen. You know, you can see the figure here that the reduced footprint and intelligent collection data immediately cut our collections down by 75%, and we felt that immediately. Being told where you need to go and how often was such a relief. It also allowed us to invest in other ways of beautifying the campus. You know, there's research done by Washington State and William and Mary where, you know, when people visit campus and prospective students visit, they make their decision within 10 minutes. And we wanted to work smarter and find ways to invest in our turf and our landscape spaces and our trees without having to hire more people or divert resources from the trash collection, because no one will pay attention to your landscape beds or your trees if they're littered with garbage. So the fact that we were able to recoup some of those labor hours and still accomplish everything made a huge difference. Next slide. You know, so efficiency to us was the first box that we wanted to check. You know, it had to make sense from a financial standpoint, from an efficiency standpoint, and we started the process by looking at everything that is involved with our operation, our fleet, honestly how much we spent on trash bags. That is money that you are literally throwing away on a daily basis. So what our ordering looked like for those standard bags and how often we were having to purchase them, particularly because we were only using them half full. So how we could then utilize that funding, how that funding would look allocated towards Bigbellies, and what was left over, how that would be contributed to these other projects that we may be able to contribute, or would it look like we could hire a different person? And really within 1 year, we recouped the cost of one full-time employee, and that made a big difference. The stations initially were purchased outright as part of the pilot program. The university went through the process of the Bigbelly Connect program, which is their lease program. That made a lot of sense to us, especially because we were adding stations and going through our phased expansion in varying volumes. It may be 100 Duo stations, you know, in the spring, maybe 15 in the fall. We started to pick up traction and involved our parking services department, our hospital and healthcare system, our campus housing. And so it was something that very quickly picked up steam, but we couldn't guarantee the volume. The lease has worked well for us insofar as We have an open line of communication with our contacts at Bigbelly. We always know kind of the state of our stations. And so it's very easy to keep track of what we need to do, what we need to change, and what may or may not be working. Next slide. You know, picking up garbage is really the least fun job that I think anyone can have. And that was true for our staff. And I think there was definitely some hesitation in the beginning. You know, we're getting all these new machines, what's going on here? How do we use this? But once they started to see that this was to make their job not only easier, but the end result was that they could enjoy different aspects of their job more. Everybody was on board. We've been able to perform more enhancement projects. We've been able to run less overtime. For us too, it's been also very safety focused. You know, the status was mentioned earlier that you can select how often you want those pickups, the pickup alerts noted. We have that set 3 times a day. That's what works for us. And we also have the fullness level. We played with that quite a bit, currently set at 60%. So that if something happens for us, be it a street festival or a severe weather event, particularly in the winter, the weight of those bags is not unmanageable if it has to go another day or 2 for our staff. Particularly with an open top can, you have no idea how much that bag of garbage is going to weigh. It could just be a pizza box and that's your lucky day. Or it could be filled with water or, you know, a full conglomeration of glass bottles, and it's very heavy. So we're trying to keep this as, you know, safety and employee focused as possible. Our campus also incorporates a retail area, restaurants, bars, convenience stores, and particularly on the weekends, this is a very lively area. So we are setting ourselves up for a bit more success where we are able to tailor our weekend operations where our staffing is lower to more pointed priority areas given the time of day and the time of week, and don't have to go back and know, okay, we have over 400 open top cans. How are we going to manage all this without the overflow? Next slide. So UIC is a very brutalist campus. It's a lot of concrete, and until the last few years, there hadn't been, you know, a lot of construction. And it's a very exciting time to be at the university. There is a lot of growth, a lot of expansion, and a lot of modernization. It's something as simple as a trash can, I think, goes a long way. You know, the side panels on these stations have been utilized by our environmental health and safety offices, our advertising spaces from our retail partners, public health and safety, just for sustainability offices, just for messaging to the campus to say, hey, we're here, we see you, you see us, and just kind of to further engage with the staff as well. And we get a lot of feedback, and that includes the neighborhood association as well, to which our campus abuts. You know, the university has been here for decades, and I think the freshening up and the modernizing really does go a long way. There are also options to add hotspots to these stations, and that has been a conversation, especially with some of our new construction areas and our IT departments, just to further the accessibility in some of these activated areas. And you would never know because it's trash and recycling. Next slide. So, you know, kind of getting back to that 10-minute pause. You know, like I said earlier, we have a lot of different demographics that come, you know, to and through our university. The UIC has traditionally been known as more of a commuter campus. One of our train staff sees about 5,500 to 6,000 passengers per day. It is very busy, and 34,000 people within our footprint is pretty dense. And there are a lot of different users and different folks that we want to appease, and we want to make a community that is both welcoming and inclusive and adheres to the voices of the university. And one of the unique challenges of being an urban university are our pests. In years past, we used to have an average of one OSHA recordable event per year from emptying our trash cans, be it a squirrel, a rat, or the actual liners, the metal liners of the cans having been rusted out. And then when we would go to remove the cans, someone would be cut or things like that. And so the elimination of kind of all of those barriers has helped us reduce and the instances of that happening, and just kind of put our employees first from that aspect as well. When we went through the process of prioritizing our spaces, high traffic was certainly a priority, whether it was dorms, libraries, our quad areas, and our west side of campus, which is primarily hospital and graduate student research focused. Our clinics, very, very popular. And it's also a place where our department, our goal is to get in and get out. We want to make sure the building is readily accessible, and you shouldn't have to kind of linger for very long. So having these stations here and quick access or access 1 to 2 days a week has made an incredible difference. Next slide. So the addition of this recycling system has been, I mean, quite frankly, UIC didn't have it before. You know, there was one can and anything and everything would go into it. So I think that the university was very open-minded and willing to entertain the proposition back in 2014, where, you know, students were saying, hey, this is something that we really want. And the great benefit here is that it is taken advantage of by not only the faculty and staff, but the visitors of the university as well. The neighborhood, you know, that we adjoin every day, people are in and out, and our diversion rate is incredible. And we work very closely with our sustainability department to undergo waste audits on an annual basis and kind of take a look at where we can improve some of the areas on campus where perhaps the utilization rates are not where they should be, and try to work and educate with some of those building managers and say, you know, are there educational opportunities here, or signage, or, you know, kind of what can we do to bolster that information without having it impede our ability to do the work. Clean, the software-based program, is something that myself and our supervisors are very well versed in. We utilize that information to communicate directly with our staff and also provide that information to sustainability employees, student groups. It is used quite a bit in student research. And so it's a nice way to be transparent about the work that we are doing and the input from the university. So, you know, UIC is a very sustainably focused campus, and they're always looking for ways to continue that mission. We are continually interested in ways to reduce plastic use on campus, improve our recycling diversion, and how to educate users on where those opportunities are. Next slide. So really, you know, we look at some of our information here as our daily tasks go. You know, grounds is notoriously a department that is not very friendly with greenhouse gas emissions. Our department has also made strides in being able to gravitate towards battery-powered equipment as opposed to gas equipment. And really the goal is to do the same work, but do it sustainably. And when you have this tool and this program that allows you to know exactly what you're doing, but not have to guess, the efficacy just skyrockets. You know, our fleet is, I'm sure everybody else, you know, parts aren't readily available necessarily. You know, a little bit longer on the wear and tear and the longevity. And so when you don't have to make all of these stops and you're able to reduce your workload from especially all the starting and the stopping at each station by over 80%, it makes a huge difference, not only from your greenhouse gas emissions, but your preventative maintenance visits, your reactive maintenance visits. And so we're doing all we can to prolong the life of everything involved in this aspect of our job. The less we have to do, the more we can do longer. Next slide. I guess that's it. You know, we've had a very successful journey. Our goal, and I think one of the big things for us too, is that the Bigbelly stations have been introduced into our campus standards as an option, which is great. It's become much more of a fluid part of our conversation and has been a great relationship for our campus. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Carly. It's been great working with you since 2014 and how this whole journey has gone. It's kind of a good lead in to, you know, how we work together with our customers or potential customers. And I'd like to cover that a little bit. And then we're going to go into some Q&A and allow anybody to ask Carly questions or us questions if you'd like to. You can put them right into the questions chat box. And Sophia here with us, our marketing manager, will ask away for us. So just working with Bigbelly quickly. And Sophia, yeah, there we go. It's a pretty simple process, and you know, thinking back to the early days with Carly and UIC, you know, really once they began trialing the first stations and all, really they did a great job setting up, you know, what the goals and objectives were, really trying to understand, you know, what they were going to accomplish and getting that vision down for where this would go. You know, they knew right from the beginning they wouldn't do the whole thing all at once, so very much the phased deployment that was figured out. Whether or not they wanted to buy them or lease them, as Carly talked about, purely the customer's decision on that, and they chose to go the direction of our Connect program. But you know, we work with you to really assess your current waste system and understand where the challenges are. It's not just about waste volume, but it's also could be about pests, locations and things, you name it. And there's lots of factors that go in, but they go beyond just the volume of waste and how many times you're collecting it to really understand that assessment. But really mapping that out and really getting a good sense of what the current deployment's doing is key. And then collectively together, coming up with a waste solution. As Carly mentioned, generally, you know, theoretically, when the Bigbelly system goes in, there can be a massive reduction in the number of bins that you have in a campus setting. But, you know, you need bins in places for convenience reasons. So you just can't really go to the optimal sort of number of bins that the system might say you need. So really working through and developing a waste solution that provides the convenience that you still need to have, yet reduces the bin footprint to the right amount is pretty key. And it's usually a bit of an iterative process. And then from there, you know, kicking it into the implementation strategy, typically in phases or something. And that's essentially what went on at UIC for all these years and has gone very well. This whole process is something we do with all of our customers every day. There's no charge for that, you know, so we're happy to come in and work with you. Our team is, and work with you to try to figure it out, see if it makes sense. That's what we're here to do. Just real quick, some contact information. Feel free to reach out to us with anything you have, questions, or you'd like to get us looking at your situation. And also Carly's information is here as well. And these slides will be available for you after the webinar. So if you're madly writing down, you don't have to. So with that, we'll kick it into a Q&A session. So welcome anybody to ask some questions.
So first question, did I hear that each waste bin is equipped with a compactor? How do you supply power?
You're the technical guy.
The technical guy. So again, the inspiration for founding the company in the first place was to put public space compactors, or put compactors out in the public space. What is interesting about being in the public space is even if it's surrounded in an urban area by all sorts of electronics, there is no power.
Plugs.
There's no plugs out in the sidewalks. So every one of our compactors is run on a solar panel that's on there. So all of the energy needed to run that compactor and operate the smarts and the sensing system is powered by that solar panel on top of the bin. One of the nice things about the sustainability side of that is it gives a lot of visibility to other sustainability initiatives that may be happening around a campus. Maybe you have solar panels on top of your buildings that nobody sees. This is a nice visible example of solar power going out and doing its job around a location. Now, we do offer these in indoor models as well. On the UIC campus, they have some in their parking garages that are, some of those are purely battery powered, non-compactor units, but we do offer plug-in compactor units for indoor spaces. So you can mix and match, but our typical deployment out on a street or a walkway setting is essentially a cordless compactor operating off the solar panel.
Great, thank you. Next question, why is there a capacity difference between smart and basic versions of the bins?
I'll take that too. Okay.
Yeah, why not?
So if you think about a bin, Carly talked about guessing, right? If you're guessing on when you go pick up a bin, if I were concerned about overflows, I would err on the side of going too often. I would err on the side of getting there long before it would reach an overflow condition. So when you have a sensor on the bin telling you when it's full, communication from that sensor going to a cloud platform of which you can get a list or a notification of that fullness in a variety of different methods, whether it's email, a web app, or mobile app. You can wait longer because you know what's going on in that bin. You can get there closer to when it's full. So, we typically think about a regular bin wanting to be picked up maybe well before it's 50% full on average. Whereas, as Carly was talking about with our system, we don't even get notified about picking up the bins until they're at least 60% full or greater. So by the time you get there, maybe they're 80% full. So you can really use more of the waste bin capacity you have when you have those smart sensing bins reporting in how full they are and when to go pick them up.
And just to add on that, with all the assessments we've done, we've received a ton of data from many customers all over the place, and traditional bins are typically picked up around 50% fullness because you don't know. And so if you think about a bin that might have 30 gallons or 40 gallons of capacity, it's only 15 or 20 gallons worth of waste that's in there. So not knowing is really, a challenge. You just can't utilize the capacity of that bin, because if you try to overutilize that capacity, you'll end up with overflows.
Following that same line, what methods do you use to collect the compressed trash? How heavy is the compressed trash?
Good question. So Carly talked about that a little bit, and generally most public space waste that's coming in is rather fluffy trash. It's cups and bottles and fast food bags and things like that in many cases. And so if that's mostly what the bin environment is and it's experiencing, it doesn't really have a lot of weight to it, even when it's compacted. So typically in the 20 to 25 pound range, in that range would be how much it weighs. However, if like Carly talked about, they had cases where certain units would see a lot of glass bottles and things coming into it. And those obviously get a lot heavier. And so in those cases, what we will do, or you can do, is you dial down the fullness threshold that it reports it's time to come get me, to keep that at a manageable level. So it is somewhat dependent upon the stream of trash as to how much it's going to weigh, but most public space waste is not super heavy. Organics is a great example of the opposite, where it gets very heavy, and we adjust that by setting the threshold at which it says it's time to come get it, so it doesn't get too heavy.
This question is for Carly. Carly, you mentioned that the former way of thinking was to have many traditional bins scattered across campus. Has Bigbelly helped you reduce the number of waste receptacles? And how did you decide that this was not going to increase litter and it be okay with the administration?
You know, when we started the process, our administration was very supportive in our efforts to move away from the, you know, kind of mow and go mentality of landscape maintenance. They wanted to kind of recoup some of those, I would say, beautification efforts with our grounds crew. And so just mowing and just picking up trash, they wanted to expand our efforts. I think part of that is recognizing not only the aesthetics behind what it looks like when you have a trash can genuinely every 10 feet, and saying, okay, well, you can have one trash can, and really when you are walking through with, you know, the Bigbelly representative, the goal and how we approached it is, if you are at one Bigbelly station, can I see the next one? So it might be half a block down, or if you have a clear line of sight, it may be at the other end of the block, and that's okay. There were certain instances where it was a little bit of an adjustment, because there are people who like to park in the same parking spot every day. There are people who like to throw their trash away in their same trash can every day. But really within, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks of each deployment, everybody knows, you know, what to do. And so I think it is a breath of fresh air not to see that density of concrete trash cans, and just know, okay, I either have to walk a little bit further, or I can keep the trash in my car and don't have to clean my car out in this parking structure or parking lot, or I can take the trash in with me to my office.
The next question is, you guys covered it a little bit earlier. Are there hands-free options? We're finding that consultants don't want to touch the handle/lid to toss trash.
Yes, there are. So, and today now that is more or less standard. We introduced the hands-free option, what, about 4 years ago?
4 or 5 years ago, maybe.
And the, you know, initially some units were deployed with it. Pre-pandemic, about 80% of the units would have the hands-free. Post-pandemic, nearly 100%. So it's now comes as standard on any unit that has the hopper. If you notice in this picture behind me here, oh, it's over there. For the organics, there is an open interface in that case. So there's obviously no need to touch it, and no need for a foot pedal in that case. But so the foot pedal is now standard on any new station that we ship out today that has a hopper interface.
So this is a question about our basic units. What is the advantage of having a non-smart, non-compacting unit as opposed to a regular receptacle?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing there is really consistent look and feel. So if you're training people on what a waste receptacle on campus looks like, Carly was talking about, as we're looking at the deployment at UIC, having you, if you're at one bin, then you can see the next bin. Someone walking around with their waste doesn't know whether that's a smart bin, whether that's a compacting bin, whether that's connected or not. They just know that this thing that looks like a Bigbelly is what I look for to put my trash away in it. So the role of those basic non-compacting, non-smart bins is to fill in the spaces where it really isn't cost effective to put a compactor in, and maybe not even cost effective to put a smart sensing bin in. But you need a bin for convenience. You need a bin for that kind of waste flow, you know, making people know that there is a waste bin near there. just really create that uniform look and feel around the campus.
The other aspect of that is that sometimes, especially on the periphery in a place, or like a walking path in a university, having one smart one and then the next one not smart, they very much, if they're both kind of always doing the same thing, they don't really both have to be smart. And so you can keep the cost of the overall system, lower the cost of the overall system down by that kind of right sizing and deployment, putting the smarts where you need it to get a good handle on what's going on. Typically, the really high volume areas that a compactor has, those generally almost always need to be smart because the waste volume is very high. But what often happens in periphery areas is most folks we find don't want to not collect the waste more than about 2 weeks at a time. And so some of those will actually never see that volume, but they need to have a can there because of where it is. And that's another good example of where you really don't need that to be smart. You can just set the time and and it'll flag you to go pick that unit up on the maximum time that you allow it to be collected.
Next question is about compactor safety. So the initial question is, do the stations compact the trash, and is there a protection from a student putting their arm in the container and getting it mangled?
Go ahead.
So the answer to both those questions is yes. Our high capacity stations are waste compactors, so they will compact about 5 bins worth of waste into 1 bin's worth of volume. Again, this is one of the original reasons why we founded the company, was to create that kind of technology and create that sort of device for the world. In doing so, we looked at all the other types of devices around there, and every compactor that's out there, compaction is not unique to Bigbelly. In the back of house, there's probably a compactor at your buildings. There are other indoor type compactors that have existed before Bigbelly. Houses used to have compactors in in the kitchens, for example. Every compactor has some sort of safety mechanism to prevent people from reaching in and getting their arm hurt. And ours is no different. What is different about the Bigbelly is the way we went about it. Ours is a completely passive safety waste interface, much like at least the mailboxes of old. I know some of them have turned into slots now, but if you think about a mailbox of yesterday, as you open up the door, you can't reach your arm in to get at the inside. And the Bigbelly is no different. When the hopper gets opened, I can't reach in past the hopper to get in and get at anything that's dangerous inside there. So there's no mechanism needed. There's no electronics needed to keep the user safe. It's safe by kind of by design and intrinsically. So we are very proud of the type of compactors we put out there. We do feel like they are the safest on the market. And we really have taken user safety as a core principle of ours, and are really proud of our track record there. Our customers are happy with how safe their citizens or residents or students have felt. And people have deployed our compactors around the world without safety incidents.
And I believe we have time for one last question. What are you doing about the ongoing squirrel problem with the bins?
Good question. So it's a good question. The enclosed nature of the bin is a good thing and a bad thing. It keeps a lot of pests out. It keeps wind-blown litter from coming past. We do a great job on birds and rats. As the critters start to get bigger, they start to be more like a human, and they can start interacting with the handle and have enough weight to push the handle down. So we've been working on some new handle designs to help in situations where larger rodents, vermin are an issue, and hope to have some exciting product releases coming up soon.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We have so many good questions, and the ones that we didn't get to today, the Bigbelly team will directly interface with you to answer your questions. So we're really excited to talk with you guys. So certainly, using the contact information provided in the presentation, feel free to contact us with more questions as they come up. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you taking some time with us today. And Carly, thanks so much for sharing your story.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
And on behalf of APA, I'd like to thank Carly and our Bigbelly team for the great presentation. It's greatly appreciated. So until next time, be safe, stay healthy, and be kind to one another. Thank you so much. Have a great day.